Hey everybody, this is Loren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. With me today I have Kevin Indig, and this is an Encore presentation. We had so many viewers, so many people tuned in for the last hour on questions and answers about e-com, Shopify, everything else. We didn't get to all of our questions, and Kevin and I are like, we got nothing better to do. Let's continue, right? So we just went back in the dressing room, toweled off a little bit. Now we're ready for our Encore performance.
Round two.
How's it going, Kevin? You ready?
Yeah, man. Still feeling great. So many good questions. How can we stop here? We cannot.
Can't stop. Can't stop. Won't stop. So let's get started. I'm going to run through these real quick. I'm going to start from the bottom up. So let's go. Emily from Lisa Angel asks, when launching a new brand utilizing a Shopify site and their budget is limited, what's the number one thing you would start with from a marketing perspective?
It's such a cool question because it's actually not uncommon. We have a lot of merchants who are first-time business founders. They might, during the pandemic, for example, maybe have been furloughed or maybe even lost their job, or some of them had to, stay at home for a while. And found a bit of extra time at their hand, and they just wanted to improve their income, or even make an income at all. We have a lot of crazy stories out there, and so these, some new merchants don't have a big budget at their hands, and what they do really well is they integrate within communities. So that's something that I would look out for. Is there maybe a way to integrate with the community, maybe even on Reddit, maybe on Facebook, maybe there's a local community. We have merchants who started to kind of bring their products to like the local church community, and that got them off. So I think there are tons of ways to engage with the community, online or offline. I think it's a very powerful way, especially if you're already a member of that community. The thing to watch out for when it comes to that is to just be new and start immediately advertising. That's a good way to burn your profile in a community. But at the same time, if you have been part of a community for a long time and then you very passively mention your product, or even maybe don't even mention it at all and just have people go to your profile and then see, oh, there's a store and there is a product behind it, that is one of the most powerful low-cost ways of quickly scaling a business. And again, if you're offline, like we know, for example, some farmer market merchants, and they all of a sudden start to an online business, right? And they have their customers, they already have an established base. And they have a brand in that town. So those are all great ways. Now, there's of course also the flip side. If there's like some products just don't have a community, and there's kind of nothing around that you can tap into. In this case, I still think that social media is a really good way. That's where most of the attention is these days, especially some like Instagram or TikTok. And you can use these platforms without paying for ads, right? So if you have a very interesting Instagram account, you show how your product is being made, or you show the background of your product, you show maybe what your mission is, what you stand for, why you created that product in the first place, who it is for, what it is for. There's a ton of potential to just start with that, add some hashtags to your post, maybe tag some people, maybe engage a little bit organically on social media. It's a good way to build a slow base. And on the other hand, if you have a bit of budget, of course, paid like ads on Google, on Facebook, or any other channel, that's a way to kickstart a product. But you don't always have to pay to play.
Speaking of kickstarting, Shopify powered site and multiple products, and Google, it's my understanding that Shopify has an easy integration into Google Merchant Center / Google Shopping. Could you go over that a little bit for the listeners and viewers today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Google partnership is manifold. On the one hand, for a long time, you've been able to just advertise on Google Ads through Shopify, and now you also have a direct integration with the Google Merchant Center, which means that there's like a one-click verification to get access to the Merchant Center. We're also making it easier for merchants to be discovered on Google. There are a couple of more announcements that we're hopefully making relatively soon. But basically, Shopify as a platform is a good gateway to just help Google find all the different stores easier and make bridge that gap. And so with kind of Google's changes on the policy in product listing ads, and all that kind of stuff. It was just a no-brainer for both sides, for Google and for Shopify, to say, hey, how can we make it easier for merchants to tap into that and get them going faster without having to, go through 10 little steps. So there's an integration, and that's a partnership that we're hoping to intensify in the future.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody out there, like Google products and Google Merchant Center is not just for advertising. There's a whole organic component to that. If you're not integrated into Google, if you're an SEO and you're working on an e-commerce project, either as a client or you're integrated internally, and you don't have Google Merchant Center access, request it right now, right? Because it's set up differently than Search Console, and Google they'll do this, right? They'll have this over here and that over here, Google My Business over here, Google Merchant Center over here. Make sure you get access to Merchant Center, because you cannot necessarily track the sales coming in from Merchant Center and analytics unless you go over to Merchant Center. You get an idea of the clicks then, and then there's special ways that you can integrate UTM parameters into your feeds to be able to then track organic sales from Merchant Center and analytics. So tap in right now to Google Merchant Center.
Yeah, I should get that going. And what's interesting to notice, earlier in the show, we spoke about the new discount markup for the Google search results, or the offer markup, where you can show when a product is discounted. That schema lives in the Google Merchant Center. It does not live in the regular schema documentation that Google has. So Merchant Center is super important. Super important then, especially now, holiday weekend, all kinds of sales going on. So make sure you get those discounts integrated into that so people know at the end of the day, right? Yeah. I do see one issue I do see is a difference in pricing that can come up in the 10 blue link schema versus what's showing up on the right-hand side or in that insert from a Merchant Center perspective. So get on top of that, because it can make a huge difference. The last thing you want to do is to be showing a price that's wrong in Google, right? Because there may be other stores that are selling your product. And if your own .com or your own self-hosted or Shopify store is not communicating that, but then maybe Walmart Marketplace or maybe some other places where you're syndicating your product sales are, they're going to get the benefit, and then you're going to lose X percent to wherever is selling your product versus you directly. So definitely get into that. Apparently there's a debate going on right now in the world of PDP pages, where if you have one product with multiple variants, so not just sizes and colors, but maybe strengths. One thing that comes to mind is CBD. So you have your isolate, your broad, your full spectrums, or different mgs of whatever is in the oil or whatever. So what should that be handled from multiple PDPs or product pages, or should you have one consolidated product page where different variants and things can be picked accordingly from that? Yeah, that was a kind of bigger pain point that we know we had on the platform. And on Tuesday, we announced that we're making it much, much easier for merchants to indicate the variants and manage that. So on your inventory page, you can now add, this should already be live, you can now add the variant of a product, whether, as you said, it's t-shirt color, size, strength, those kind of things. And we'll make sure that it's being served to Google and to customers from a friendly perspective, so that we don't create a ton of duplicate content or so. If you want to learn more about that, it's super simple. But if you're interested in that, in our Shopify Help Center, we have a couple of pages about adding variants. So either you Google something like Shopify adding variants, or you just go to our help.shopify.com and in the search function, look for adding variants. You'll find the page. It's super easy.
Very cool. Very cool. So let me go through these here. Let me see. I asked that question previously. Sorry, we just kind of ran through these during our break. What is the most important content part of a PDP page? Would it be the product description, the specs, the reviews? What do you think? Geraldine from Refurbed asks, what do you think, what part of the content on the PD page should be the most, should they focus on the most?
It is a great question. I'm a little torn. I think to me, the number one place probably goes to FAQs, and but it's a very close second with reviews. The thing with reviews is that if you have like, you know, a lot of 5-star reviews that have a couple of words, that could look spammy very quickly. And so a lot of reviews that are looking too good can actually be I don't want to say necessarily harmful, but they people might just like tune them out and become very skeptical about your product. However, the way that I look at PDP content is I basically want to recreate the customer service that I would get in a store. You know, the same way that somebody would like consult me when buying a certain product. And so you want to make sure that in your FAQs, you have all the most important questions and answers. You have them customized for your product. What I often see is the same FAQs across several product pages on the same store. Not super valuable. Sure, like you want to explain your shipping policy and all that kind of stuff, but answer some actual questions that people have about the product. You can also add FAQ schema to that. I know that Google just very recently trimmed down the number of results that show FAQ schema. However, when they show, they are very effective. So definitely want to take a look at that. I think as a second and third place, right? I think the product description content is very, very important. People want to know everything about the product, from size, how to use it, what to be aware of, what's important. And then I think there's like this kind of almost like boilerplate content that you want to think about, like how long does delivery take? What's the warranty? How many pieces come in the product? Is it in stock or not? It's like 5 to 10 little pieces of information that people might be scanning for. So I would also make sure to include that.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Google did reduce the amount of FAQs that are being shown via markup in the results, but you know what? 2's better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
So it also is getting very crazy for a while, especially in the coupon space and some other spaces where you can only have so many FAQs in the results. But you brought up a good point. Don't replicate your FAQs across the site. First of all, it's not going to be valuable to someone unless it's product specific or at least category specific. But secondly, Google may ignore all of your FAQ markup on the entire site if you're utilizing the same FAQs on every page, right? They want differentiation in FAQs in order for that to pass the mustard on that side. So definitely make sure you make those product specific on that side. Another thing too that I've noticed is that you bring up a really good point with user reviews, right? So having all user reviews be 5 stars is going to throw some people off. Even when I'm shopping on Amazon, I look at the 3 and the 4s because I want to see if there's a problem or not. And second, make sure UGC is a double-edged sword, right? So you can have some great reviews in there, but if you're not policing your reviews or you're not moderating your views, things are going to slip through, right? Someone might leave a 1-star review saying, "Oh, this company's a scam," yada 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 yada, and no one picked it up. Someone might having a bunch of 5-star reviews that say great, 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 great. It's almost like WordPress comment spam at the end of the day, right? You're just going to scroll. People are just going to scroll through it and ignore it. Yeah. Second thing is there's a lot of great platforms out there like Yapo and Podium and things like that from a review perspective, right? But Google's not necessarily going to read those reviews or rank those reviews. It's really nice to be able to go through those reviews and be able to pinpoint some of the best written ones and then have some kind of static alternative within the PDP itself that Google's going to read, right? And serve in the results, especially if there's some good keywords in there, hint, hint, on that side. So a little static review, maybe a person of like the ability to feature those reviews on the page can really pay off from an SEO perspective outside of the third-party app that you're utilizing. Mm-hmm. So that's something to look at as well. So, okay, next question. Oh, speaking of third-party apps, you have any recommendations on speeding those things up? Because like you said, with the Dawn theme and everything else that Shopify is doing, things are super quick. What I see most of the time slowing down sites from a Core Web Vitals perspective, or at least a page, the speed components of Core Web Vitals are third-party apps, a lot of which, ironically, are Google owned. Yeah. But any tips on speeding that up or prioritizing the rendering of those apps upon load?
Yeah, it's funny because we noticed the same thing. Our apps and app developers play a crucial factor into how fast the stores themselves are. And so, as always, we try at the Shopify side, we try to solve the problem a bit more systematically, and we try to support our app developers in just creating faster apps, and apps with less legacy bloat and just bloat in general. And so it's tricky to lazy load, for example, or defer loading on some of these apps. For some apps as possible, right? Like reviews, for example. Um, that is something that where users can wait a second maybe to see them. They don't have to see them right away, but there's some very essential things, especially in e-commerce, that that would be classified as important when it comes to rendering a page. And product pictures are one of them. Product title, the price, the buy here button, right? These are all things that you cannot really like delay and defer. There are a couple of guides on our help documentation and on our blog about lazy loading, about deferring rendering. You can theoretically go into Liquid Code and defer anything from being rendered. However, I urge you to really only do that if you're an absolute expert. You can also do a lot of harm if you play around with Liquid and don't know what you're doing. So be careful with that. There are a couple of lazy loading apps that you can use on Shopify. But on top of that, we want to go for just leaner, faster apps.
Speaking of apps, Shopify does not supply an image XML sitemap. And I've worked with a couple of companies where they've utilized a third-party app that basically crawls the Shopify site, takes all of the image files from the CDN, creates an XML sitemap hosted on a third-party domain for your site, and then on their third-party Google Search Console, they upload that, right? So all of the images are there, and apparently those images do refer back to your site through Search Console. But that really worries me, just because of all the changes that Google made with redirects in Search Console and redirects in sitemaps and everything else. Are you guys working on anything to be able to have an image sitemap component to Shopify? Because for me, Google Images is basically Google Shopping Lite, right? I search for images. I see, especially when they added schema markup and product reviews to Google image results, right? So is there anything like that in the pipeline? Are you allowed to talk about that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I cannot make a promise of when we launch something. But like I tell you what, like, between you and I and everybody else tuning in, you always want things to ship faster, like with the things that we have shipped, there's certainly a learning curve, and there's always something that you don't have on the radar. So, empathize with all the companies out there that know that customers want something and want to get it out of the door, but need to get it right. So we try to move fast, but reality is that some of these things take time. XML sitemap, including structure, what's being included, the different types, certainly on top of our mind. Something we're looking into and something we're hoping to improve fast.
Nice. Okay. Next question comes from Gabby Troxler from fay.ch. I'm not going to pronounce that TLD in English because it might offend some viewers. What's Shopify's take on duplicate content and how to best, I'm not going to pronounce that domain TLD in Swiss because it sounds funny in English. Sorry, I kind of messed that up a little bit. What's Shopify's take on duplicate content and how to best handle multiple URLs and pages that are generated that have many collections, tags, specifically tags, and filter options within Shopify?
Yeah, there are some there's some short-term solutions to that, where once again you probably have to go into Liquid Code, where you want to be a bit more careful. But we've heard that several times, and this is another item on our list where we try to make an improvement, where we want to see how we can make that easier. It is a tricky situation because there's a lot of canonicalization going on, which shouldn't necessarily be an issue from an indexing perspective. We know, though, that a lot of merchants don't want Google to crawl across several hoops or having to go through several hoops. So we're looking into how to best solve that right now. With any of these like questions or requests. What also always helps is specific examples. So I want to encourage anybody to reach out on Twitter. My DMs are open. I try to answer quickly, but as you can imagine, there are lots of requests and lots of messages. But however, if you're open to that, I would really love specific examples that we can look into, because it always makes it much, much easier to find the root cause and find the solution too.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So speaking of international TLDs, another question that comes through is, what is Shopify's current roadmap to help shops go international, especially with different country language combinations, currencies, and product ranges? For example, currently tags and URLs are only available in the shop's main language. So anything in the pipeline that's going to help with the internationalization and localization of Shopify stores?
Yes, that I can confirm, because we have a beta out there.
Good.
There is certainly something that's so. We're also we with meta fields and the kind of online storefront 2.0, it will be easier to provide local currency. So that's going to be very exciting. And again, we provide a bit more meat around that on Shopify. You can by the way go to unite.shopify.com and see all the announcements that we made. Rewatch the videos. When it comes to internationalization, yes, as I mentioned, there is something in the works there, looking specifically into how to make it easier to scale internationalization, how to make it easier for users to get the local variant when they go to a site. But as always, we want to make that not a default. We want to make that a thing you can toggle on and off, right? So if you, for example, want a geo-specific redirect that automatically redirects users, if you want that, then you'll soon be able to toggle that on in your store. If you don't want that, you don't have to go with that. But we know that we have merchants, and we have a lot more merchants over time that have international presences and are represented in more than one country. And so we had a couple of smart people working on solutions for that.
Yeah, I know, like domestically with North America, I mean, you're pretty close to the border, so it's a big thing with Canadian shoppers, right? They go to a .com, it's available for shipping, but the currency's in US dollar. Even the ability to change that currency from US dollar to Canadian dollar based upon geo-targeting is going to help from a conversion perspective, and things are going to seem a little bit more expensive than they actually are, I guess. I haven't been to Canada for a while, but last time I went, I was like, it's great. Like everything was so cheap. So same thing, I'm sure, in Latin American markets, right? So
yes,
I think the interesting thing about Latin America is that you have so many different countries that have the same language but have different currencies. So you have a shared language and culture, and I don't think it's really anywhere across the globe. I was trying to think about that the other day. Maybe to a degree Africa, but you have French, you have this. I mean, you have a lot of different. Anyway, so point being is that there's always spillover, right? Like maybe a site's intended for .mx, but someone from Guatemala or Venezuela may find that. And can it be shipped? Can it not be? What's a local currency? How does that work? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just the ability to have that currency component right into the cart can be very valuable at the end of the day, I would think.
It's huge, man.
On that front.
It's huge, and you're absolutely on point there. South America, it's a recurring topic that we look at over and over again. Super important for us to empower merchants there a bit more and make sure they can have their local currency with almost the same language. And spillover effect is real, very real. For Google, it's still sometimes difficult to distinguish what country a specific site is for. Very. I'm also thinking in the back of my head, like Ireland, like UK's pound, Ireland's euro, right? Is that how that works? So, shilling? I have no idea. So, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think we're talking about different countries in the same area. Yes. No, I think you're spot on there. I think part of Ireland's. Oh gosh, I'm probably saying something wrong. So I better don't. Yeah. At all. I am not sure. I don't know. The right answer is I don't know either. I don't know either. I'll hit up some friends and ask them. So next question that comes in from Chris, no company named. Do you think the number of products are a ranking factor? If one site has 100 products and doesn't do much SEO, and another site has 10 products and is very aggressive with SEO, which one wins from a ranking perspective? Or even, let me add to that, which one should win from a traffic perspective as well? But logically, I would say if you have more products, you probably are able to target more keywords and therefore have more potential to gain more organic traffic. I think it's not. I don't think it's a ranking factor. I don't think that Google prefers sites that have more products. Um, I think I understand what the question kind of hints at, which is kind of the difference between the singular and plural version, right? So if you search for something like Christmas candle, that's different than maybe Christmas candles in some context. So I wonder if the question hints at that. But generally, I'm not aware if Google looks at the number of products as a ranking factor. I know that if you have a marketplace that covers many brands instead of just one brand that goes direct to consumer, there are scale effects that can come together, right? Like you might benefit more from technical SEO simply because the site is larger. You might have the potential to gain more backlinks, and if you do distribute that correctly, there could be an effect there. So, but I think just the sheer number of products probably isn't a ranking factor in itself.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point too with the Christmas candle perspective as well, because if something is a seasonal sale item, it probably shouldn't rank all year anyway, right? That should start to rank mid-November. Maybe like if Google sees a site as being seasonal, right? Maybe I might search for Christmas candles right now. I might get more Amazons, more Etsy's, et cetera, but there may be a Christmas site that it kind of appears in the rankings right beforehand and then goes down accordingly. So something to keep an eye on as well. Speaking of sites that have low products, Mark Wagner from Digital Maze asks, what would be the best possible SEO strategy for Shopify stores that do have a small amount of products, say 9 to 10 products? Any SEO tips for a limited inventory Shopify store via a mass inventory Shopify store? Do they have the advantage at the end of the day because they have less products to focus on versus a store with thousands of products?
Yeah, I think that is a benefit for sure, right? And I think at that scale, if you're under 10 products, even if you're a bit over 10 products, you probably, as you can say, you can probably simplify things a little bit. You don't have to worry too much about internal linking. You can probably have all products on the homepage, or even in just like one collections page, right? Like it's not, you don't have to worry too much about how Google discovers your products and that kind of stuff. At the same time, it might be interesting for buyers and customers to not just buy a single product, but buy complementary products, right? So there are certain products that lean themselves more to complementary ones, to stick with the Christmas candle. If you can sell the matches too, that's not a bad idea. But if maybe next to the candle, you also have a room scent of the same kind, for example, again, I'm trying to make something up here. That might be a good idea. Again, there's not necessarily like an SEO tactic or SEO thing. This is much more like customer experience and how to build a business. So it's more entrepreneurial questions, I would say.
Which is SEO, right?
Yeah,
like
it's connected.
My job as an SEO is not to just bring people to the front door and leave them. Like, go here, get in this store, right? It's to make sure that the SEO driven user buys at the end of the day, is upsold at the end of the day. They may convert differently than an ad user does. And then that follow-up as well, right? So it is kind of an ongoing, I don't know if it's an ongoing debate or what, but I just feel that my role of an SEO is to make sure that organically driven, sales-oriented traffic has the best experience they can have, and they buy at the end of the day. Because I'm not held accountable on traffic alone. I would probably say traffic is maybe 10 to 20% of what I'm held accountable for as being an SEO. I'm held accountable for return on investment or return on ROAS as being an SEO.
Yes.
And so, do you feel that SEO should be included and part of that entire journey at the end of the day? And should that journey if someone becomes a customer and a member of your list via SEO, should the SEO get some kind of reward or acknowledgement? I'm getting very personal here, but should the SEOs have some kind of reward or acknowledgement for the lifetime value of that customer?
Yeah, it's one of the most interesting questions in SEO right now. Where does SEO start and where does it stop?
Where does it stop? Yeah.
Right. It's like there's technically no end in sight, if you will. However, it comes down to these technical questions to really give a good answer to that question, right? I think SEOs should be included in almost any conversations. I think SEOs actually sit. If I were to compare a different role to SEO in a company, it's probably product management, right? Product managers are these super integrated, multifaceted people with a couple different skills. They have to kind of push a product forward. They often have to convince with more persuasion than authority. And at the same time, they're one of the few people in a company that talk to designers, to the engineers, to the operations people, sales, pretty much everything. They sit really in the middle, in between. And I see SEO as a very, very similar function, just maybe a bit more fixed on the digital acquisition side of things, but it's in essence the same thing. And so if you're talking about impact on email sign up, impact on revenue, absolutely. Like I think yes, like SEOs should be part of that. And we talked before about CTAs and that maybe sometimes you don't want to hard sell people, maybe you just want to get them to sign up for an email first. I think that's a very smart and modern way to think about acquisition in general. And of course, if a lot of the traffic comes through organic search and SEO, absolutely should SEOs be part of that, and maybe even make that part of their goal. For some content, if you think about the journey, say somebody comes from a search engine to the site, and then they read a piece of content. Sometimes the next step is for them to leave. Sometimes the next step is for them to click through to another article. Sometimes the next step is for them to sign up or buy something. And all these are sort of conversions that SEOs should measure and should, be held accountable for. So, it's a long and winding way to say, yes, I think there are a lot of conversations that SEO should be part of. At the end of the day, the big question is always, what does improve the user experience? And if that's the case, then I see a direct connection to organic search. And we're talking about user experience pretty much until the point of sale, right? Like what happens post-sale, there's a little bit of an SEO component too, but I wouldn't exclude this whole product experience. We're talking about like the customer journey or the customer buying experience.
Jerry Zhang, who I used to work with over at One Class, asks, which sites come to mind that have outstanding site architecture for e-commerce, and what makes them great? So is there anything, are there any huge leaders in the e-commerce world that we should learn from, replicate, keep an eye on? Who are some of the sites, whether it's just an e-commerce platform or e-commerce platform driven site or a marketplace, that e-com SEOs and e-com marketers in general, D2C, should keep an eye on? Who's doing it right?
I'll give a practical specific example. But before we jump in, site structure, taxonomy, categorization, grouping, classification, these are super difficult topics that seem very obvious at a high level. But my experience is that whenever you go deep into these topics, you hit a point at which there are more than one solutions. It's an ambiguous topic. It's not, there's no perfect structure for anything out there, which is one of the reasons, for example, why like social networks, for example, follow a flat hashtag-like structure, right? Or a graph type of structure. There's no hierarchy to things. So you can bring hierarchy into some things, you can categorize, but you will always find that like some products fit into several categories, or maybe this, category is not exact enough. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. So that's just to say, a specific example for a great, also just overall technical SEO site, to me is carmets.co.uk. It's a Shopify merchant, and again, I want to
Carmets.
Yeah, Carmets.
Oh, that's Mark. Mark Rofe, right? Yeah, that's a buddy of his launched that off of Exactomain like a year ago, like when Carmets started, like right at the beginning of the pandemic, didn't it?
Yes, that's Ashley.
Okay, I don't want to take your story away. You tell the story.
You're good.
Sorry,
you're good.
But you just hit a bell.
No, Ash Young, friend of Mark Rove, started that. And again, I want to call out that I don't endorse any specific merchant. There are lots of great merchants that do fantastic technical SEO. That is just one site that comes to mind right in the moment. They have a really good. They sell car mats, right? No surprise, according to the name. I think they have a really nice structure. It's a super snappy, fast site. They make it super simple, and they categorize their products by the car brand, and then the subcategory is the model, and then below that you find the type of car mat that you need. They also do a really good job with their PDP content, by the way. I think they're overall just a really good example. If I could recall this correctly, I think the store also hit $1 million in ARR sometime this year, probably not too long ago. So doing really well. Great example. It's not a huge store, right? I would still classify that as relatively small, but they're doing a good job.
Right. No, it's cool. I like it. It's very, you know what? Let me share, since this is an Encore episode, let me test a little bit of this functionality here at StreamYard. You still have some time, Kevin? Are you good time-wise?
Yep.
Okay, so let me test this out. Share screen. And then I'm going to, this is going to look really weird for a second, but I'm going to share us. Now I'm on car mats. Do you see car mats showing?
I don't see it.
Wait 1 second. Sorry, we are live.
No, you could. Doing it live. It's most authentic.
Doing it live. So I'm going to stop the screen. I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to share a window instead. Okay, so share screen, select the window, car mats, share. And now, there we are. Look at that. Beautiful. Doesn't really work with the format of the template much, but you all can see this is a very simplified site. Like, I love the way it has the registration, which I guess will be the VIN number in the US, which I identify the site there. And then you have the drop down of all the manufacturers very easily. So let me do my vehicle. May not even Ford.
Yeah, it should be there.
Not a Mustang. Well, I have a F-150. It's not here. But let's pretend that I'm driving a Ford Cougar. I don't even know what that is. and then let's look at Ford Cougar 1998 to 2002. Obviously a discontinued vehicle. Find my car mats. Boom! Look at that.
Here we go.
I can put one in the boot here or the trunk. I'm just pretending it's .uk, so I'll call it a boot. And then the Ford Cougar car mat, it was $29.99. Now it's only $19.99 pounds. So can you guys see my detailed app when I share that? Let me see here. No, you can't, because that's a add-on. But I'm wondering, so all of these are discounted. So I'm wondering if it's applied in the schema. Let me look at that real quick. I'm gonna let that bugger load. We have the reviews to the left, so you can see these. You don't have to scroll down. I like that. A lot of the time I'll see user reviews way down in the site. So they're using reviews.io. They're on the left-hand screen. The eye goes from left to right naturally, right? So I'm looking at this photo. I go down the reviews, and then they're lined up pretty much right next to the whole transactional component, right? So I don't really see much from, it's funny because we were just talking about this. I was asking you earlier, what's the most important content to focus on the PDP? I was thinking you were going to say like product description or something like that, but it's really reviews and the FAQs right here.
Yep.
So some of the FAQs are expandable, but the rest is just like product information that's great for Google. And then I have the reviews lined up perfectly, 4, 4, 5, 5. And my eye and my mouse goes right from the left to the right. I really like how simplified this site is.
Yeah.
There's so many sites that I see that really try to overdo it. Yeah. Sorry, what was that? I was talking over you. Sorry.
No, I was talking over you actually. Sorry about that. It's straightforward. It's simple and to the point, as you said. And as you mentioned, some sites are overdoing it. Like these days, when I probably shouldn't say that because I keep bashing Amazon all the time. But anyway, it's an Encore, so we can do anything. But when I look at Amazon PDP these days, man, it's getting harder and harder to like really find what I'm looking for because there's just so much happening. They're massive sites.
Yeah, they are. And somehow like Amazon gets away with like 300 character title tags as well. And then they rank all the way at the top accordingly. So yeah, look at this. We have actual, this is really useful, but most of the information I need if I'm driving a 2002 Ford Cougar is right here at the top of the page above the fold. There's really no reason to scroll down, right?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. It loaded super fast. Let me look at my schema data here. Got my product. You guys see that? Got my product data. Quite a lot in the description. They're missing some aggregate ranking, rating, and stuff like that. But that's probably a reviews.io component because sometimes those have a hard time locking together. But this is done very well, very well. So carmats.co.uk, something to really look at from a structure perspective. I see in the URL products so they're really writing a lot of sites. You would see this as a nested hierarchy between make, model, year accordingly. This is written out in the URL. Ford Cougar 1998 to 2002 boot mat. So this is a boot mat. I'm proud of myself there. Oh, it says it right here too. So maybe that's why. But yeah, very cool. Thanks for pointing that out.
Sure, absolutely.
And I know this site is a darling of the UK SEO community as well.
Yes, rightfully so. There's some really, man, there's so many interesting examples out there of stores. I discover new stuff every day, and you'd be very surprised how creative some people get, what kind of products they sell, what cool kind of stories there are. I mean, like we have at least a merchant story, like an actual merchant at every town hall, like once a week. And man,
nice.
It's freaking insane. Like you see people, yeah, I'm going to stop there. It's just insane.
Do you guys showcase them? Like, is it fair to showcase like one merchant over another, like on Shopify, like via on the site or anything like that? Do you guys do like merchant showcases?
We have some
call outs.
Yeah, we have some of those. Yeah, but again, we want to be super careful to not prefer anybody or give preferred treatment. That is certainly not the case. But for us, it's important to keep in mind who we're doing this for, why we're doing this. You know, it's not just kind of to make a couple of quick bucks on the internet. There are merchants that came from nothing. They live somewhere in rural India, and then they build a business they create like 300 jobs, like out of nothing. So it's that kind of stuff that we keep reminding ourselves of all the time.
I'm blown away at the simplicity of this site. It is so stripped down and functional at the same time. Like that's the one thing. Like I see so many like site owners that are trying to put every single bell and whistle onto their site. Headings, moving things, whatever things flying in as you scroll, whatever it is. Like this is what you want. This is so like, and this might as well be an AMP, right? It's just like it's amazing how quick, how simple. You have like your basic SEO links at the bottom. Footer links are so important. They're so overlooked sometimes. I've had clients redo their footer, take links out, and suddenly they drop. Put it back in, they're back up again. It's incredible how that works, right? Very important at the end of the day, even from a usability perspective. You got these simplified drop downs. There's no images here. It's just the names of the car, the most popular, I would think, car and vehicle. Very simple, very easy to go through. It's probably very German at the end of the
day. I know. They're so close to Germany, rubbed off a little bit. No, but if you scroll over more in the navigation, you see all the other car models or makes, right? So definitely smart about that. And if you think about it, it makes sense because buying a car mat is a low emotional journey, right? This is not like buying a new phone, buying a new outfit. It's like you just want to get the damn car mat.
Put your feet on. It's like
yeah, exactly. It's literally on the ground, and so it's like you don't need like a model holding up a car mat, smiling at you, trying to get you into some emotional state to overcome some friction, right? Just want to get the damn thing. You want to know if it fits. Cool. There's no kind of design component to it. It has to be the right size and the right type, yes. But it doesn't have. There's no blue, red, yellow car mat. Just So it's the site reflects that.
Super simple. I love it. It's like shopping at Aldi. It reminds me of shopping at Aldi.
Yep. One of the most successful companies in Germany.
All right. So I think that's it for today. Is there anything else you wanted to go over before we end our encore presentation?
Should we do an encore of the encore? I'm kidding. No, I'm good, man. I'm happy.
All right. So thanks again, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the Shopify team for giving you the day off today so you could jump on. Really looking forward to the holiday. Are you going to go watch fireworks?
Yes, absolutely. Northern Michigan by the beach. Going to enjoy that.
Nice. Thank you for the Ahrefs team. You all sent me this mug and this t-shirt without even being part of the sponsorship agreement. So thanks, guys. Thank you for sponsoring today's episode and for the next few weeks or so. So thanks so much. Thanks, Kevin. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Enjoy. and I'm gonna go hit the gym. I'm not gonna
Yes.
max out, but I'm gonna get some blood pumping through these muscles. I've been sitting on this chair for the past 2-3 hours. Okay.
Makes two of us. You enjoy. Have a good fourth, and I'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks.